have we got a lot to say today when it comes especially to that big story today, which is the Cass review into the extraordinary, outrage, disgusting, immoral and absolutely, I would say, criminal treatment of children who believe they're transgender. Not trans kids, because there is no such thing as a transgender child, but children who mistakenly believe that they're transgender. Well, they have been medicalised beyond belief, their lives altered, their bodies mutilated, their ability to ever have a fulfilling sexual or romantic relationship probably damaged for good. Many will see their life living, less years because of the treatment they've been given, all in the name of a political ideology. Well, that hopefully ends today. Well, let's talk about that with my guest who's joining me all this morning. That is Benedict Spence, who's a Conservative commentator. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
It is extraordinary, this Cass review. It's taken 4 years, 388 pages. We've had an interim review published beforehand. Today is the day, although there's been quite a lot of sort of leaks of what was in the report, and a lot of it, frankly, to be expected from anyone sane or sensible who looked at the evidence. Key findings, let's just go through those. There is basically no good evidence for treatment of children with these transgender puberty blocking drugs. They say that evidence is based on shaky foundations. There's no good evidence of long-term outcomes. Hilary Cass, paediatrician, by the way, a former president of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. She might know what she's talking about. She has called for an end to puberty-blocking hormone drugs under 18, extreme care for anyone aged 17 25, like basically saying, look, you need to be taking far more care about this. A holistic therapeutic approach is more appropriate. And are pointing out that many who believe they are trans have experienced trauma, neglect, abuse. Many have autism, other mental health problems, or in the case of girls, often they're simply lesbians, they're gay. Basically said there's also no clear evidence for social transitioning as being positive or negative. I mean, tell us something we didn't know. Is there anything in this report today, Benedict, that we didn't know already and that the medics carrying out this treatment didn't know?
No, absolutely not. And it's one of those things where, you know, I think a great deal of people have known for a very long time. In fact, I'd say the majority of people, even if they weren't aware of the evidence that existed, a lot of people in their gut knew that this was the case.
People working at the clinic, lots of mass resignations.
Absolutely so. And I think that, it shows really quite the levels of sort of hysteria and mania that we've got to a position where we actually need a thorough report to say, no, this isn't the case, this isn't the case, this isn't the case. At which point you sort of sat there thinking, well, where on earth did these sort of myths enter the public discourse as being based in scientific fact? Because we are told, it's pushed on us by so many activists and activist medics as well. Let's be clear, it's not sort of universal. A lot of doctors do actually buy into this sort of thing.
No one at Stonewall or Mermaids held the arm of a doctor, twisted it behind his or her back.
Exactly.
Sorry, their back. Have to be right on now. And forced them to give puberty blockers to a 12-year-old child.
No, absolutely
No
not.
one made them do that. They did that in breach of the Hippocratic oath they took when they became a medic.
Yeah, I suspect it is a minority of doctors who have ever actually held this view, because actually most doctors are sensible. I mean, you have to be, one would hope, to become a doctor.
Well, you have to be fact-based.
Yes, you have to believe in evidence, even if you don't sort of, move with the times. Doctors can get quite old and stuck in their ways, but still, at some point, you have to be quite rational about these things. But ultimately, it's a relief, actually, to see that this has come out, and now it depends entirely on what our political elites, our social elites, our media elites choose to do with this fairly clear information. Do they actually go with the science, or do they become science deniers, so to speak?
Yes, well, they're very big on the science, apart from when the science doesn't argue in their case.
Which science is it?
No, exactly. And again, there's only one kind on this, because in terms of the evidence. But the thing that worries me about this Cass review is that everything in this review, which is entirely correct, science-based, fact-based, evidence-based. She's been looking at this for 4 years. This is hundreds and hundreds of pages of evidence. We knew already, and all of the medics at the Tavistock Clinic and elsewhere knew all this already. We knew that giving puberty blockers to children was unevidenced. We knew there was no scientific evidence for whether this was good for children, whether this would save lives. We knew there was no long-term evidence about the impact. We knew that it made children infertile. We knew that it meant that they could never achieve sexual gratification. I know it's a small point, but maybe most 13 and 14-year-olds wouldn't have thought about that. And we knew that children couldn't possibly, at that age, possibly understand that. Parents being told not to give their children more than half a paracetamol, being told, no, put your child on a puberty blocker. We knew there was evidence of long-term injuries to, or damage to brain function, to risk of cancers, and goodness knows what else. They knew all that, but they did it anyway. They also knew that most of the children turning up, asking for help, claiming they believed they were transgender, because, by the way, no child is transgender. They knew that most of those children either had autism or were suffering from post-abuse, neglect, or some other trauma. They also knew that the huge increase in the number of girls who were turning up, from a matter of a few dozen to a few thousand in a matter of a few years, was the result of, let's face it, social media campaigning, an awful lot of social sort of, I suppose, just sort of intoxication on this issue. This was the latest thing. And that a lot of those girls were actually lesbians. They were actually young gay women who would have gone on to have a perfectly happy life as a young gay woman, but have been told, no, really, you're a boy. They knew all this. And yet they medicalised those children. They mutilated those children. They told them to bind their breasts. They told them to cut their breasts off, to cut off their genitals, to change their bodies irrevocably without full consent, because you can't consent to that when you're a child. You don't understand the implications. And parents were browbeaten into going along with it, being told, but if you don't, your child will commit suicide. Again, another complete lie. I have no idea what will happen now and whether or not all these recommendations will come into force. Some already have, some I suspect will be got round. But what I really don't understand is how any of the ideologues, the people pushing this, the political trans activists, and especially the doctors and the nurses who are carrying this out, how they sleep at night. Because there is a special place in hell for people who abuse children like this, and you're going to be in it. Benedict, do you think things will change?
I fear that they won't, or that there will be a lot of pushback. And I feel actually because the Labour Party are going to be the next party of government. So, and there is a lot more, I think, motivation on the left than the right in this country to push this kind of thing. I would hope, therefore, that a lot of pressure is brought to bear on the Labour Party, and that actually we should just, forget talking about it to Tory MPs, because a lot of them have disgraced themselves over this anyway. They're not going to be the party government for some time. This is where the pressure needs to be brought to bear, and it needs to be brought home to a lot of these people that actually the traditional communities that are Labour communities, Labour heartlands, are a lot more socially conservative than a lot of the radicals and the upper middle classes of London. This is not what they want, this is not what they believe, and they agree largely, I think, with what you've just vocalised, that this is wicked and that this is child abuse. They will not look kindly on this. They will not reward them for this. They will not look at them and go, oh, it's very progressive that you're getting around the science. They will just say, no, you are denying the truth that is here in black and white, that we all know you are putting our children at risk, and we won't have it. And I think if Sir Keir Starmer were a brave man, he would take a stance on this.
Yes, Starmer still thinks some women have penises. Exactly. I don't think he will. And if he does, you'll know he just... Everything he says is for effect, or what's the latest focus group said, as opposed to what he knows to be true. When it comes to the safety of children, I think you should just always do the right thing no matter what. Well, I want to hear your opinions on this. Children who believe they are transgender, because remember, there's no such thing as a trans kid, should not be given puberty blockers, with thousands of youngsters let down by the NHS. That is what a landmark review has concluded.